So here we are again, back by unpopular and somewhat spontaneous demand. I was busy setting up to do another one, possibly two Nightwish songs, um, on the basis that so many people that have subscribed to this channel are Nightwish fans and come to me via Nightwish. I'm kind of running out of the obvious picks, the ones that specifically ping me, the ones that I feel like I can specifically add value to. But I've got a few things that I'm busy setting up and considering doing. But then this song, or a particular lyric in this song, bubbled to the surface today while I was talking to my daughter about a story that I've spent a few days this week writing as part of an anthology film that I'm in the process of trying to develop. It's the story of a young girl in South Africa called Dudu. Dudu is a fictional character. She's a creation of mine based upon actually a guy called Zolly, who I've spent some time writing with in the writing room of one of the shows that I was working on last year. But Dudu is fictional, but I spent some of my time in the writing process doing a quite detailed monthly budget for Dudu, a quite detailed look at Dudu's finances, for reasons that I'll explain as we get into this song. But because of Dudu and because of the conversation with my daughter that was prompted by her reading the script this morning, this song bubbled back to the surface, as it does a lot. And the truth is, I have been looking for another Fish lyric to do. He's an incredible lyricist. He's a very particular and specific lyricist. Strangely, has an awful lot of similarities, certainly in terms of content, but also, I guess, in the way he layers his writing so that there's an aspect of social commentary, of personal truth, of sort of hidden intimacy. Strangely similar to Steve Hogarth as a lyricist, although in a completely different writing style. This is has always been one of my favorite songs, but it took on today particularly a very specific texture and tone, and probably from now on in my mind is going to be Dudu's theme. As I say, I'm going to be indulgent, as is the nature of this channel, and get into that after we've taken a little listen, or started to listen, to The Last Straw, from the last album that Fish did with Marillion, Clutching at Straws, arguably the best album he did with Marillion, certainly by my estimations, the early stage Marillion album that I listened to the most, probably as much as I listen to any other late stage Marillion album. It's an incredible piece of writing. It's an incredible piece of work. And this is an incredible piece of music. So, having probably spent way longer on the introduction than I'm supposed to, if these things are to be believed, this is Marillion, The Last Straw, featuring Mr. Derek Dick, aka Fish, on lyrics and lead vocals. Right away, it's an amazing piece of lyric writing. He jams a lot of syllables into every line. He jams a lot of words into every line. I'm not a singer. I sing constantly, very, very badly, but I'm not a singer. So I don't know technically whether a lot of his songs are harder to sing for other singers than might be expected. Certainly, he writes with a very specific style that is it almost seems verbose, certainly baroque, um, and filled with little nuance. Here, he immediately paints a picture. Now we know that lyrically, Clutching at Straws was an album where Fish was struggling to come to terms with the success that they'd had as a band, and with his own personal fame, and to an extent the black dog of his own demons and addictions and bad habits. So right away, he's also painting, I think, a very personal picture. And yet I can absolutely, in my mind's eye, have a picture of that exact hollow corridor, padding down that hollow corridor in the early hours of the morning. The typewriter cackles out a stream of memories. What a lovely, lovely, lovely line. Drying out a conscience, evicting a nightmare, opening the doors for the dreams to come home. It's speaking of someone whose every piece of writing is informed by his demons, is punctuated by the black dog, and yet aspires to write the dreams, right? I mean, that's a lovely, it's a lovely opening. It's very, very specific to Fish. It's very specific to what he was going through at this moment, in this place, in this time. And yet the next part of the verse, so much like Steve Hogarth, he goes from the deeply personal to a sort of broader societal comment. We all live our lives in private shells. This, what was the date of this? Was this 89, somewhere around there? Let's just click here, just see if it tells us. This is the remix. This was, no, 89 is too late. Clutching at Straws. Answers on a postcard. This was a long time ago. This was pre-internet. It was pre-COVID. it was in the olden times. And yet, how much does he capture the essence of the age we live in now? That idea that we live in these private shells and fool ourselves into thinking that there's someone out there that cares, but more importantly, that there's someone out there that will answer our prayers. That abdication of responsibility to make your life work in the benighted hope that somebody else will make your life work for you. It's a fantastic opening. It's the last song on the album, so it's not an opening in truth. This is a sort of final argument. Throughout the album, the concept of the short straw, the concept of the short straw as denoting the straw that what one would use to not drink a milkshake with. The imagery is coming home in this last song, but as an opening of this song, just fabulous. Someone else cares, someone to answer all our prayers, Are we too far gone? Are we so irresponsible? Have we lost our balls? Or do we just not care? We're terminal cases that keep taking medicine, pretending the end isn't quite that near. We make futile gestures, act through the cameras with our made-up faces and our PR smiles. And when the angel comes down to deliver us, we'll find out after all we're only men of straw. But everything is still the same, passing the time and passing the blame. We carry on in the same old way. We'll find out we left it too late one day to say what we meant to say. What a line. As Ollie would say, bars, that last line. Have we lost our balls? Do we not care? What a dark piece of imagery. We're terminal cases that keep taking the medicine, pretending the end isn't quite that near. I mean, that is just so bleak and so nihilistic, which, strangely enough, while it's not the line that brought me to Dudu and her story, absolutely captures the thesis in some ways of the anthology that I'm writing. And then, again, this first stanza, which weirdly is typed different. Now, okay, so yeah, this first stanza, which is made up of two sets of thoughts, both of these two thoughts deal with, I guess, very much his personal life, futile gestures, acting to the camera, made up faces and PR smiles. Now, I'd like to believe that the made up faces is a double meaning, not just the makeup that you wear to go on television and the PR smile that you give. I use that expression, by the way, in my writing all the time to denote fake smile. I never write fake smile anymore. I write PR smile, because PR smile is so perfectly capturing of that sort of the smile that we give because we're supposed to smile, because we want people to believe we're smiling. But the idea that the made-up face is not just the makeup for television, but the face that we present to the world, I'd like to believe that double meaning is intentional. I take the double meaning from it. We make up faces to present to the world. We make up a face for ourselves and then plaster on our PR smile and act for the cameras. And then again, we get to a charming, a beautiful piece of nihilism. When the angel comes down to deliver us, we'll find out we're only men of straw, hollow, empty. Steve Hogarth wrote about the hollow men. I was listening to that just earlier today, and thinking I should really talk about it, because Hollow Men as a song weirdly so perfectly captures the age we live in. Again, written, I think, in the, I'm going to say 96, somewhere around there, written a really long time ago, and yet perfectly capturing the age we're living. But here we are, hollow men, men of straw. And then he comes back to the broader sense of the we. Everything is still the same. We pass the time, we pass the blame. We carry on in the same old way, the drudgery, the grind, the brutal, unrelenting sameness of it. We carry on in the same old way. We'll find out we left it too late one day to say what we meant to say. No commas there. There's lots of commas in how we say it. We'll find out we left it too late one day to say what we meant to say. When I listened to this earlier today, while thinking about Dudu, and then thinking about my brother, and thinking about all those people in my life, I suspect it's a common theme on this channel, that idea of thinking about all those people that I need to make sure I've said the things I need to say to them, because we might not get a chance to say them again. That's a phenomenal, profound line. We'll find out we left it too late one day to say what we meant to say. Don't do that. We are terminal cases, no matter how much we keep taking the medicine. We are all terminal cases. As a person much wiser than me said, what is it? Life is... Terry Pratchett said, they say that your life passes before your eyes when you die. It does. It's called life. Something like that. Say what you meant to say. Say it now. Say it soon. Stop watching this nonsense. Pick up the... How old am I? Send a WhatsApp. Beautiful guitar tone. Wow. What a verse. What a verse. Those problems seem to arise, the ones you never really thought of. The feeling you get is similar to something like drowning. Remember that. That is really important to this song. That feeling, the feeling you get is similar to something like drowning. Lots of syllables. Hard to even say. Fish, as a vocalist, he does really, really interesting things because he writes such Baroque lyrics, I think. Out of your mind, you're out of your depth. You should have taken soundings. A sounding, I don't know, I'm probably over-explaining this. There might be somebody out there that doesn't know. A sounding is when you measure the depth of the water under the boat to make sure that the boat doesn't run aground. A sounding is the depth of the water. You should have taken soundings. You should have measured the depth of the water before you got into it. Clutching at straws, he says, we're clutching at straws. So let me tell you a little something about Dudu's world. This anthology I'm writing is about the thesis that no matter where you sit in a society, whether you are someone that pulls a trolley through the streets of Johannesburg picking up plastic so that you can collect great bales of it and sell it for a few pennies to live, or whether you're the landlord that owns the block of flats that is charging everybody else in the food chain to live and driving an expensive car, everybody in that food chain is grinding. Everybody is facing the increasingly brutal economics of life and the increasingly brutal understanding or reality that whether they make good decisions or bad, they can't necessarily stop themselves from getting out of their depth and into trouble and find themselves clutching at straws. So all of the characters in this anthology film are looking at everybody else around them and thinking they have a better life. When the driver of the taxi, which in South African context is a 16-seater bus that scuttles from place to place, filling up people, and the driver of that bus is famously a bad driver, famously inconsiderate of other drivers, famously always carving you up in traffic, because he's also famously working very, very hard to make an easy living. People look at him and think his life is good because he has no boss. He just drives and bullies people on the street. He looks at Dudu and thinks her life is good because she works in an office with a desk and she gets a salary every month. And Dudu looks at the boss of the taxi company and thinks his life is good because he's got more money than me and because he's, everybody looks at everybody else in the world and thinks they have an easier life. But the truth is, the brutal truth is, nobody has an easy life. And increasingly, the hard life is getting harder and more brutal and more uncompromising. And the feeling you get is similar to something like drowning. Steve Rothery. A pitch perfect guitar solo. Not a single note more or less than needed to be there. The tone, the emotion of it. It's an overused hack expression. People, what is it? Oh, it's gone from my head as I say it. He's underrated. People say, "Oh, Steve Rothery is underrated." People don't underrate Steve. People don't appreciate this about Steve Rothery, and people don't know that about Steve Rothery. And I'm going to make one of those hack, cliched, sweeping statements. I found myself thinking today, after listening to this track and to the album Brave, one of the pieces of the golden thread, pieces of continuity between Fisher's Marillion and Steve Hogarth's Marillion is the absolutely impeccable emotional tonality of Steve Rothery's guitar. His guitar work always perfectly captures the emotional tonality of these very emotional singers. That is an incredible solo. Just mind-bendingly good. Is he underrated? Very possibly, but only because this whole band is underrated, if only by the fact that we know that we go onto Spotify and there's hundreds of thousands of listens, not hundreds of millions. Everyone in the whole of the world feels the same inside, said Steve Hogarth on The Space. Fish, in a previous incarnation of the same band, said, deep down inside, we're all one and the same. The similarities between the little short impish fella and the ogre from Scotland are so uncanny when it comes time to look at what they write about. So I'm interrupting because I want this song to play out, but I also want to finish telling you why I wanted to tell Doodoo's story today. As part of writing this film, which is about Doodoo and how she fits into this brutal, uncompromising world where everybody feels something like drowning, I had to create her budget, which meant I had to go and do some research into what it cost Doodoo to live her life. And I knew that Doodoo, to the perception of most people in Doodoo's world, is incredibly privileged. Doodoo is what in South Africa is referred to as a born free, meaning she was born post-apartheid. Probably, if I think about how old she is in the movie, probably on or around about the start of Nelson Mandela's time as president of South Africa. She was born free. She would never directly experience the impact of apartheid and that brutal oppression. But of course, she lives in a society that is absolutely affected to this day by that brutality and that oppression. But she is a born free, which means that she got to go to an unsegregated school. And given the nature of the character I've written, I'm imagining that while her brother, who works as a gardener and earns maybe 3,000 rand a month at 20 to 1 to the pound, you do the math, 3,000, take the naught off, 300, cut it in half, £150 a month her big brother earns to work in someone's garden. Dudu got to go to university because Dudu went to a reasonably good non-segregated school. They called it Model C. Dudu went to a relatively good school. She learned to speak good English, which in the prejudice of our times suggests that she's intelligent. These are all brutal realities that I'm referring to. These are not my prejudices. These are simply the South African realities. She got to go to university. She qualified to do accounts. She got a job in an accounting company. And when we meet Dudu, she has a little office of her own. It's not a posh office. It's not particularly big, but it's an office of her own. She earns the princely sum of 20,000 rand a month, which is £1,000 a month. A bank teller in South Africa earns right now about 9,000 rand a month. And 9,000 rand a month, as opposed to Dudu's 20, 9,000 rand a month is 43% higher than the national average. I will confess I didn't do the math. But that suggests to me that the national average is just a little bit under 5,000 rand a month. Take off the naught, 500, cut it in half. £250 a month is the national average salary in South Africa, a country with 40% unemployment. This is the feeling you get, similar to something like drowning, right? Dudu lives in a world that is something like drowning, and she is born free, well educated, in what everybody around her probably considers to be a really good, high-paid, paid job. She's earning, let me just do the maths quickly, she's earning, I can't even think about it. She's earning 100 would be, I can't do it, 150% above the national average. Is that right? Something like that. Maths was never my strong suit. I have a spreadsheet. I made a spreadsheet to write this story. And the reason I made the spreadsheet is one of the things Dudu wants to do is she wants to buy a car. She wants to spend 45,000 rand to buy a car, which is a reasonable budget. But in order to spend that money, she's got to lend the money, borrow the money. She's got to borrow the money from Westbank, the car financing bank in South Africa. And they are going to charge her just a little over 1,000 rand a month to buy that car. She's going to pay something in the order of 75,000 rand for that 45,000 rand 12, 15-year-old small car. But she really wants it, because if she doesn't have the car, she has to drive in one of those taxis to work every single day with 16 other people crammed together at the mercy of a driver that he's going to, at any minute, be jumping out of the taxi to fight a war with somebody over the route that they're driving on. She just wants to have a little car of her own, a little symbol of her freedom. So she's doing the maths on her life. And the brutal reality of the maths on her life are earning 20,000 rand a month in a country where the average wage is something in the order of 5,000 rand a month. Dudu can't afford the car. Dudu can't make the budget work. And one of the reasons Dudu can't make the budget work is because she is charged what is known on Black Twitter as the black tax. And the black tax is as simple as this. Because Dudu's the one member of the family that has climbed a little further out of the bucket, the rest of the family all look to Dudu for help. She gives her grandmother, Gogo, some money every month. She helps pay some of Gogo's accounts because Gogo is buying clothes and furniture and things that she needs for her small life so that Gogo can raise Dudu's two younger brother and sister. Dudu is helping them. Dudu probably on an average month spends 5,000 rand of her gross 20,000 rand on supporting her immediate family. And that doesn't allow for the cousin that comes and asks for a little favor because he needs to solve a problem, or the uncle that needs to buy a tool so that his window fitting company can keep fitting windows so he can keep making his hard living. Dudu is at the top of a little pyramid where she is the beneficiary of so much, and yet the feeling she gets is similar to drowning. Dudu is someone that most of the characters in my anthology see as aspirational and see as privileged and see as living a life that they wish they could live. And she's still drowning. She's fictional. And she refers to her brother and younger brother and sister as the rats and mice. And that made me cry when I wrote it because it was so sweet. And because I know that at the end of the film, I'm killing Dudu. Because as a person that believes absolutely in redemption, I'm writing a film that has very little. Because I'm writing a film for which this could be a theme song. So why do I want to tell you the story of Dudu? I want to tell you the story of Dudu because after 18 months of COVID and after an hour and a half of this video, you probably think you've got a really, really hard life. After 54 years on this planet and working my tuckus off to get this little house in a little village in North Yorkshire, I sometimes think I've got a hard life. And then I remember that I'm not a coal miner like my granddad. But more importantly, I try to remember Dudu and all the other Dudus. And I try to remember that in this seemingly brutal world, while it doesn't help to say somebody else has it worse, maybe it does. To at least understand that you're not alone in feeling like you're drowning. And if we all feel like we're drowning, maybe we should all cut ourselves a little bit of a break. Let's listen to the rest of this amazing song. Here's Dudu. I think I may have ruined this song for myself. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to listen to this song again without thinking about Dudu and the rats and the mice. and her gogo and her brother the gardener and all the other people who are still drowning, but mostly Dudu, who will forever sound like that in my head, even if this film doesn't get made, which it probably won't because films don't. That's Dudu. And to an extent, it's all of us. As an aside, can we just say how amazing it is that almost always the backing vocalists are so much better than the lead vocalists as technical singers? That girl, I don't know who she was, but that girl, in fact, wait a minute. Is it here? Did they give her a credit? No, they didn't. Didn't even give her a credit. It was auto-generated by YouTube, so it's a YouTube fail. We'll blame YouTube. That girl, that backing vocalist, what an astonishing voice. But being technically good is not enough. You've got to have that certain something. And Fish did. I was lucky, actually. I saw him in Johannesburg. He came on a promotional tour after the Vigil in a Wilderness in Mirrors album. He was brought out to South Africa and ended up performing in, as he described it, chicken in a basket places. He performed in a small restaurant at the Randburg waterfront. And me and my dad got to go and see him, and it was an amazing thing. For him, I think it was the weirdest experience because he went from playing this album to thousands of people to playing a couple of maybe 100 gawky-looking South Africans who just couldn't believe their luck. He had that thing. that lead singer thing, that star quality. And if this album's anything to go by, it nearly killed him because he was clutching at straws. He was on top of the world and he was clutching at straws. Dudu's born free and she's clutching at straws. I've made a living as a writer, a professional, actually paid to do what I do, writer, for the best part of 30 years. At least, is it 30 years? It's more than 30 years. People have paid me enough money to pay my bills and raise my children for hitting a keyboard with that finger, and those two thumbs. And sometimes I feel like I'm clutching at straws, still drowning. Empathy. Have empathy for the people around you that are still drowning, and maybe we all make the water a little bit less rough for all of us. I've spoilt this song for myself forever. I'll never hear it again without thinking of Doodoo. Let's hope the film gets made. Maybe I can convince a South African hip-hop act to do a South African Kwaito version of Clutching at Straws to get this out of my system and to get Marillion paid, because wouldn't that be nice? How's that for a rich fantasy life? Thank you for watching. I hope you do so again. I will see you again soon, I'm sure. Until then, keep the faith.